You are not stuck in life, you are stuck in your identity. And the moment your identity changes, everything changes with it. Because the truth is, your life is not controlled by luck, timing, or circumstances. It is controlled by the way you see yourself when nobody is watching. Right now, you are not failing because you are incapable. You are failing because you are operating from a weaker version of yourself. But that version is not permanent. It was learned, and anything learned can be unlearned. So listen carefully. Because this is not motivation. This is a mental reset. Over the next chapters, you are going to strip away everything that is keeping you small. And slowly, you will start building a version of yourself that no longer asks for permission to grow. Not louder. Not fake. Just stronger, clearer, and more in control. And once that shift happens, your entire life will start responding differently. Blue Book Chapter 1, Stop living like your old self. Your biggest enemy is not the world. It is the version of you that refuses to evolve. The version that delays. The version that excuses. The version that says, "I'll start tomorrow." Because every time you repeat that pattern, you are not just delaying action. You are reinforcing identity. And identity always wins over intention. That is why most people never change. They keep trying to build a new life with an old mindset. And that never works. If your thinking is weak, your decisions will be weak. If your decisions are weak, your results will stay weak. So the real question is not, what do you want? The real question is, who are you becoming? Because your habits are not random. They are proof of identity. If you constantly choose comfort, that is your identity. If you constantly avoid pressure, that is your identity. If you constantly doubt yourself, that is your identity. But here is the truth most people never accept. Identity is not fixed. It is built, daily, through repetition. Every small action is a vote for the person you are becoming. And right now, you are voting for two versions of yourself. The version that stays stuck. Or the version that rises. There is no third option. So stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for a new life moment. Because nothing changes externally until something changes internally. And that change starts with one decision. I am no longer going to live like my old self. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because the moment you choose discipline over delay, you begin separating your future from your past. And that separation is where transformation begins. Chapter 2, Silence the noise, reclaim your focus. You are not confused because life is complicated. You are confused because your mind is too noisy. Too many voices. Too many opinions. Too much content. Too much comparison. And slowly, without realizing it, your own voice starts disappearing. That is the real danger. Because when you can't hear yourself clearly anymore, you start living based on everything except your own direction. You wake up and instantly open your phone. Before your mind is even stable, you are already consuming someone else's life. Someone else's success. Someone else's routine. Someone else's highlight reel. And your brain starts doing something dangerous. It starts comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. That comparison doesn't motivate you. It weakens you. It quietly tells your mind. You are behind. You are not enough. You are late. And even if none of it is true, repetition makes it feel true. That is why your focus is everything. Because your attention is not just time. It is identity. What you repeatedly look at, you slowly become. So if your attention is scattered, your identity becomes scattered. If your attention is controlled, your life becomes controlled. This is why most people never build discipline. Not because they are lazy, but because they are mentally overstimulated. Their mind never gets silence. And without silence, there is no clarity. Without clarity, there is no direction. Without direction, there is no progress. That is the chain most people are trapped in. Now listen carefully. If you want to change your life, you don't start by doing more. You start by removing what is destroying your focus. Not everything deserves your attention. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every opinion deserves access to your mind. Because your mind is not a public space. It is a private system that builds your future. And you must protect it like it matters. Start small. Before anything else in your day, don't touch your phone immediately. Let your mind breathe before the world enters it. Because the first input of your day sets your mental direction. If your first input is chaos, your whole day becomes reactive. If your first input is clarity, your whole day becomes intentional. This is how powerful people operate. They don't let the world decide their focus. They decide it first. They don't consume everything. They filter everything. They don't react to noise. They remove noise. And slowly, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes quieter. Your thoughts become clearer. Your energy becomes controlled. And when your mind becomes quiet, you finally hear yourself again. And that is the moment everything starts changing. Because now, you are no longer living from distraction. You are living from direction. And a directed mind is a dangerous mind. Not dangerous to others. Dangerous to your old limitations. Because once you master your attention, your future has no choice but to follow. Chapter 3. Believe in yourself before the world does. There is a moment in every person's life where everything feels uncertain. Where your dreams feel too big for your current reality. Where nothing around you looks like proof that you will make it. And in that moment, most people stop believing. Not because they are weak. But because they are waiting for evidence first. Evidence that they are ready. Evidence that they are good enough. Evidence that it will work. But life does not work like that. You don't believe after results. You believe before them. Because belief is not the outcome of success. Belief is the cause of it. If you wait for the world to validate you, you will always stay dependent. Dependent on opinions. Dependent on approval. Dependent on timing that never feels perfect. But the truth is simple. The world does not create confidence in you. You create confidence in yourself first, and then the world responds. Think about it. Every successful person you admire today was once uncertain. Once doubting. Once ignored. Once struggling with the same thoughts you have right now. The difference is not talent. The difference is belief that stayed alive when nothing outside supported it. Because self-belief is not a feeling. It is a decision you repeat daily. Even when results are slow. Even when progress is invisible. Even when nobody is clapping. You still show up. You still move. You still build. That is where real confidence is born. Not in praise, but in persistence. Most people lose this battle early. They assume delay means failure. They assume silence means nothing is working. But growth is not loud at the beginning. It is quiet. Invisible. Slow. Uncertain. Just like planting something underground. You don't see results immediately, but something is forming beneath the surface. Your mindset is doing the same thing. Every time you choose action over doubt, you are strengthening identity. Every time you keep going despite fear, you are building trust in yourself. Every time you refuse to quit, you are proving to your own mind that you can be relied on. And that is the foundation of confidence. Not motivation. Not validation. Self-trust. Because once you trust yourself, you stop needing the world to reassure you. You stop overthinking every step. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You stop shrinking your vision to match your current reality. Instead, you start moving like someone who believes their future is already in motion. Even if nobody sees it yet. Even if nothing feels certain yet. You move anyway. Because belief is not about what is visible. It is about what you refuse to abandon inside yourself. And slowly, something shifts. Your actions become stronger. Your decisions become clearer. Your energy becomes different. Not because life changed first. But because you changed how you see yourself. And the moment that happens, the world no longer has to convince you are capable. You already know. Chapter 4, Discipline is stronger than motivation. There is a truth most people don't want to accept. Motivation will not save your life. It feels powerful in the beginning. It gives energy. It creates excitement. It makes you feel like everything is possible. But it never stays. Because motivation is emotional, and emotions change. That is why most people start strong and disappear later. They wait for the right mood to do important work. They wait for inspiration to return. They wait for a feeling that is never guaranteed. And slowly, their potential gets delayed by their own emotions. But discipline is different. Discipline does not ask how you feel. Discipline asks what needs to be done. Even when you are tired. Even when you are distracted. Even when you don't feel like it. You still move. That is where real identity is built. Because every time you act without motivation, you are training your mind to obey your standards instead of your feelings. And that changes everything. Most people think success is about big moments. Big decisions. Big breakthroughs. But in reality, success is built in the small moments no one sees. The moment you wake up and choose focus instead of delay. The moment you choose work instead of distraction. The moment you choose effort instead of comfort. Those small decisions repeat and become identity. And identity always wins. This is why discipline feels difficult at first. Because you are breaking an old pattern. The pattern of waiting. The pattern of avoiding. The pattern of giving up too early. But every time you resist that pattern, you become stronger than it. And slowly, something changes inside you. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop needing motivation to begin. You stop depending on emotions to act. Instead, action becomes normal. And when action becomes normal, your life starts shifting quietly. Not overnight. But permanently. Because discipline builds something motivation never can. Self-trust. The more you keep your word to yourself, the more your mind starts trusting you. And once you trust yourself, everything becomes easier. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. You stop questioning every decision. You stop falling back into old habits every time things get uncomfortable. You simply continue. Not because it's easy, but because it's who you are now. That is the real transformation. Not feeling motivated, but becoming disciplined enough that motivation is no longer required. And once you reach that point, your future stops depending on mood. It starts depending on identity. Chapter 5, Stop living for approval, start living for yourself. There is a quiet trap most people never notice they are falling into. They start living for approval. Approval from friends. Approval from family. Approval from society. Approval from people who are not even building their life for them. And slowly, without realizing it, they stop living their own life. They start adjusting their words so they don't get judged. They start hiding their dreams so they don't get laughed at. They start lowering their standards so others feel comfortable around them. And in the process, they lose themselves. Because the moment your decisions depend on other people's opinions, your life is no longer yours. It belongs to their expectations. But here is the truth most people avoid. No matter what you do, someone will always have an opinion. If you stay small, they will not notice you. If you grow, they will criticize you. If you change, they will question you. If you stay consistent, they will misunderstand you. So either way, judgment will exist. The question is not how to avoid it. The question is how much control you give it. Powerful people understand this early. They stop trying to impress everyone. They stop explaining every decision. They stop seeking permission to grow. Instead, they focus on building a life they respect. Because self-respect is stronger than public approval. When you respect yourself, you stop doing things that weaken your identity just to fit in. You stop saying yes when you want to say no. You stop shrinking your goals to avoid attention. You stop changing your personality depending on who is watching. You become consistent with yourself. And that consistency builds confidence. Most people don't realize how much energy they waste trying to be accepted. They overthink everything. They replay conversations in their head. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being judged. But all of that energy could have been used to build their future. Think about it clearly. Every time you choose approval over authenticity, you delay your growth. Every time you choose silence over truth, you weaken your identity. Every time you choose comfort over honesty, you lose power. Because power comes from alignment. Alignment between who you are and how you live. Not performance. Not pretending. Not acting different in every room. Real confidence is simple. You are the same person in private and in public. You think for yourself. You choose for yourself. You build for yourself. Not in arrogance, but in responsibility. Because nobody else is coming to live your life for you. And the moment you fully accept that, something changes inside you. You stop fearing judgment. You stop chasing validation. You stop adjusting your identity for acceptance. And you start living with clarity. Clarity about what you want. Clarity about who you are. Clarity about where you are going. And once clarity arrives, confusion disappears. Because now you are no longer living for approval. You are living for purpose. Chapter 6, Control your emotions, control your life. Most people don't lose their future in one big moment. They lose it in small emotional reactions. One moment of anger. One moment of fear. One moment of insecurity. One moment of overthinking. And those moments decide more than they realize. Because when emotions are in control, logic disappears. And when logic disappears, bad decisions begin. That is why emotional control is not optional. It is essential. You cannot build a stable life with an unstable mind. One bad situation should not destroy your entire day. One rejection should not break your confidence. One failure should not rewrite your identity. But for most people, it does. Because they react immediately to everything they feel. If they feel low, they stop working. If they feel doubt, they stop believing. If they feel fear, they stop trying. And slowly, their emotions start leading their life instead of their decisions. But powerful people operate differently. They don't ignore emotions, they understand them. They observe them, without obeying them instantly. Because every emotion is temporary. But every decision creates consequences. You can feel anger and still stay calm. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel doubt and still continue building your future. That is emotional discipline. Not suppression, control. There is a difference. Weak minds react instantly. Strong minds pause first. That pause is powerful. Because in that pause, you regain control. You decide what happens next instead of letting emotion decide for you. And this one shift changes everything. Think about how many mistakes happen just because of a quick reaction. A harsh word spoken in anger. A decision made in frustration. A choice made out of fear instead of clarity. Later, people regret it. But regret comes from lack of control in the moment. That is why emotional awareness is the first step. You must start noticing your patterns. What triggers your anger? What triggers your insecurity? What triggers your anxiety? What pulls you into overthinking? Because once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. And interruption creates change. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause. Instead of assuming the worst, you question it. Instead of spiraling, you breathe and reset. This is how emotional strength is built. Not by never feeling anything, but by not being controlled by everything you feel. And over time, something powerful happens. You stop being mentally unstable. You stop reacting to every situation. You stop letting emotions decide your direction. And you become grounded. Calm under pressure. Clear in confusion. Stable in chaos. That stability becomes your strength. Because life will always test your emotions. But it cannot break a mind that knows how to stay in control. And once you reach that level, you are no longer living as a reaction. You are living as a decision. Chapter 7. Build an obsession with your future. There is a level where success stops being a dream and starts becoming a necessity. Not a wish. Not a hope. Not a casual goal. A necessity. And that is where real change begins. Most people stay stuck because their future is optional. They think about it sometimes. They plan it sometimes. They get excited about it sometimes. But they never fully commit to it. And anything that is optional will always be delayed. Because when comfort shows up, optional goals get ignored. When distractions appear, optional goals get postponed. When emotions change, optional goals disappear. But powerful people think differently. They don't treat their future like a hobby. They treat it like something that must happen. That mindset creates obsession. Not a negative obsession, but a focused one. A direction. A pull. A constant awareness that your future is more important than your current comfort. When that shift happens, your priorities change automatically. Suddenly, wasting time feels uncomfortable. Distractions feel heavy. Low-value habits feel unbearable. Because your standards rise. And when standards rise, identity rises. You start asking different questions. Not, what do I feel like doing? But, what kind of person am I becoming? Not, is this easy? But, does this move me forward? That is how focused minds operate. They are not guided by mood. They are guided by direction. And direction creates momentum. At first, change feels slow. You don't see instant results. You don't feel instant transformation. But internally, something is building. Your discipline is stacking. Your awareness is increasing. Your focus is sharpening. And slowly, momentum starts forming. And once momentum begins, everything accelerates. Your confidence grows because you see evidence of consistency. Your energy increases because your actions align with your goals. Your mindset becomes stronger because you stop breaking promises to yourself. That is how obsession works. Not emotional hype, but daily alignment. And the more aligned you become with your future, the less attractive your old habits feel. You stop needing motivation. You stop needing reminders. You stop needing external pressure. Because your direction becomes internal. And here is the truth most people avoid. You will never accidentally become successful. You will never drift into greatness. You will never, someday, wake up disciplined. Everything requires intention. And obsession is just consistent intention. Every day you either move closer to your future, or further from it. There is no neutral zone. Even rest becomes intentional. Even breaks become controlled. Even entertainment becomes limited. Because your future is no longer something you think about occasionally. It becomes something you protect. And when you start protecting your future, you start becoming someone new. Focused. Disciplined. Unshakable. Not because life got easier, but because your commitment got stronger. Chapter 8, Leave your old self without guilt. There comes a point in growth where you have to make a difficult decision. You cannot take everyone and everything from your past into your future. And that includes parts of yourself. The old habits. The old mindset. The old excuses. The old identity that kept you comfortable but small. Most people fail to grow because they stay emotionally attached to who they used to be. They know they need change, but they don't want to let go. Because the familiar feels safe. Even when it is destroying progress. But real transformation always requires separation. You cannot become disciplined while protecting laziness. You cannot become focused while entertaining distraction. You cannot become confident while feeding self-doubt. Something has to go. And that is where most people hesitate. They try to balance their old self and new self at the same time. But that balance never works. Because identity is not divided. It is chosen. Every day you are either reinforcing your old version or building your new one. There is no in-between. This is why change feels uncomfortable in the beginning. Because you are breaking patterns that your mind has accepted as normal. Comfortable routines. Familiar thoughts. Predictable behaviors. Even if they are holding you back, they feel safe. But safety is not the same as growth. Growth requires discomfort. Growth requires letting go. Growth requires becoming unfamiliar to yourself for a while. And that is the part most people avoid. But here is the truth. You do not owe your old self loyalty. You do not have to stay the same person just because you were that person for a long time. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to outgrow habits. You are allowed to become someone different. Without guilt. Without apology. Without permission. Because every level of your life demands a new version of you. And if you keep operating with old thinking, you will keep getting old results. That is why awareness is powerful. The moment you clearly see what is holding you back, you gain the ability to change it. Ask yourself honestly. What habits are keeping me stuck? What thoughts are limiting my growth? What environments are slowing me down? What version of me am I still protecting that I should have outgrown already? Because awareness creates choice. And choice creates change. And change creates identity. At first, letting go feels like loss. But in reality, it is space. Space for discipline. Space for focus. Space for confidence. Space for a stronger identity to grow. And once you stop defending your old self, you start building your future self faster. You stop repeating excuses. You stop returning to comfort. You stop negotiating with weakness. And slowly, your identity begins to shift. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped resisting it. And one day, you realize something powerful. You are no longer the person you used to be. Not by accident, but by decision. Chapter 9, Build a mind that doesn't break under pressure. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the test. And every life will face it. Different forms. Different timing. Different intensity. But nobody escapes it. Some people break under pressure. Others become stronger because of it. The difference is not life. The difference is mindset. Because pressure does not create weakness. It reveals it. And it does not create strength either. It reveals that too. That is why difficult moments are so important. They show you what your mind is trained for. If your mind is trained for fear, pressure becomes overwhelming. If your mind is trained for doubt, pressure becomes confusing. If your mind is trained for discipline, pressure becomes manageable. Same situation. Different identity. Most people think strong people don't struggle. But that is not true. Strong people struggle too. They just don't collapse inside that struggle. They don't let one bad moment define everything. They don't let temporary failure become permanent identity. They don't let pressure rewrite who they are. Instead, they adapt. They adjust. They learn. They continue. Because they understand something very important. Your response matters more than your situation. Life will not always be smooth. Plans will not always work. Things will not always go as expected. But your reaction decides your direction. This is where mental strength is built. Not in comfort. Not in ease. But in moments where quitting feels easier than continuing, and you still continue. That is discipline under pressure. And every time you do it, your identity becomes stronger. You start trusting yourself more. You start handling problems faster. You stop panicking over things that used to shake you. You become more stable internally. Not because life changed. But because you changed how you handle life. And slowly, something shifts inside you. Fear loses influence. Doubt loses authority. Stress loses control. Because you have experienced enough pressure to know you can survive it. That experience becomes confidence. Real confidence is not, I will never fail. Real confidence is, even if I fail, I will not break. That is a powerful mindset. Because it removes fear of outcomes. And when fear of outcomes disappears, action becomes easier. You stop avoiding challenges. You stop overthinking decisions. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You just move. Not recklessly, but confidently. Because your identity is no longer fragile. It is built on experience. Built on resilience. Built on repetition under pressure. And once you reach that level, life doesn't feel easier. But you feel stronger than life. Chapter 10, Become the version of you you keep postponing. There is a version of you that already exists in your mind. Calm. Focused. Disciplined. Confident. Clear. The version that doesn't overthink everything. The version that doesn't quit when things get hard. The version that doesn't keep delaying important decisions. And you've seen that version many times. In moments of motivation. In late-night thoughts. In silent promises you made to yourself. But most people make one mistake. They keep postponing that version. They think they will become it later. When life improves. When conditions change. When they feel ready. But later never arrives in the way they expect. Because transformation does not happen in the future. It happens in the present. In the small decisions you make right now. In the habits you repeat today. In the standards you choose to accept or reject today. That is where identity is built. Not in imagination. In action. Every time you choose discipline over delay, you step closer to that version. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce that identity. Every time you choose responsibility over excuses, you become stronger internally. And slowly, something changes. At first, it feels forced. You are trying to act differently. Trying to think differently. Trying to behave differently. But repetition removes effort. And what once felt difficult becomes normal. That is transformation. Not a sudden change, but a repeated one. Most people never reach this stage because they stop too early. They expect instant identity change without consistent action. But identity does not switch instantly. It is built layer by layer. Choice by choice. Day by day. Decision by decision. And the truth is simple. You are already becoming someone. The only question is, who? The old version driven by comfort, fear, and delay. Or the new version driven by discipline, clarity, and purpose. There is no neutral path. Even inaction is a direction. So this is the final realization. You don't need more time. You don't need a perfect moment. You don't need external permission. You need alignment. Alignment between what you want and what you do. Because the gap between your current life and your desired life is not talent. It is behavior. And behavior can change immediately. So stop waiting for the perfect version of yourself to appear. Start acting like that version now. Not perfectly, but consistently. Speak like them. Think like them. Move like them. Choose like them. Until one day you realize something powerful. You are no longer pretending. You are becoming. And eventually, you become. Fully. Naturally. Permanently. Because you stopped postponing your own identity. And you finally stepped into it.